everyone, and welcome to our next panel, 12 p.m. Designing Battlebond with Gavin Verhey.
That's me.
So first off, Gavin, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi, so as I just introduced myself, my name is Gavin Verhey. I'm a game designer at Wizards. I've been there for nearly 7 years now. I've designed, Battlebond, Commander 2017, Commander 2018 coming out later this year, and a couple things that haven't been announced yet. So I'm more or less on a steady stream of projects. I was also the leads behind the Challenger decks and a new number of other things we've sent out recently. So I kind of touch everything we do in addition to these products, as well as like any given sets. I'll have cards in them all the way down. So the Ravnica sets, for example, have a bunch of my handiwork. It feels so weird to say that. Like every time I say the word Ravnica, I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to say that yet.
I'm not supposed to.
But I can finally say it now.
Yeah. All right, so for Battlebond, it was originally announced on February 14th as part of the announcement day for that day, and it was announced as this year's Draft Innovation Set. The Draft Innovation Sets, if you're not aware, are things like Conspiracy, Conspiracy Take the Crown, and Unstable. So it was announced as a Draft Innovation Set for Two-Headed Giant. So did it start that way as Two-Headed Giant, or did it actually evolve from just needing the new draft innovation?
You know, sometimes necessity breeds creation. So we knew we needed a new draft innovation product for this year, and we were trying to figure out what to do. And we had gone Conspiracy, Unstable. And so doing Conspiracy 3, well, probably didn't need to pull that trigger quite yet. And we were trying to find something new, and at the same time, we had done Oath of the Gatewatch, which had kind of a Two-Headed Giant component to it, and was really popular. People really enjoyed that element. And people have always enjoyed playing Two-Headed Giant at pre-releases. They've always enjoyed the format in small doses, and we thought, what if we actually blew it out? So Sean Main was the guy who actually came up with the idea of doing a Two-Headed Giant focused set, and we tried one draft of just his earlier prototype, and we all fell in love because it's so much fun to bring in a friend to play the game with you, to draft together, to play the game alongside each other, to have these kind of talks back and forth. It kind of makes it feel like a cooperative board game in a sense, where you and your partner get to figure out on every turn what's the best thing to do. And that really, really kind of got into our hearts really fast. That would be a great chance to play with your best friends, to play with your significant others, your kids, whatever the case might be. And we've seen it just take off since coming out that way.
Awesome. So one of the things that was announced as part of the larger article that was on Battlebond, and you talked about it a bit already, but why the change in the amount of packs for Two-Headed Giant, specifically for Battlebond? Because normally Two-Headed Giant is 8 packs for sealed and 6 packs for draft, but now it is 6 packs for sealed and 4 packs for draft. So why did you decide to go with that change?
So there's 2 main reasons we made the tweak, and it really started from draft. So sealed, you know, like any limited format, you can try it out sealed, but draft is kind of the heart and soul of the Battlebond experience. Sealed is solid, but draft is where it's really, really, really at. And so a lot of our playtesting was drafting, and we did 5-pack drafts for a very long time. We always knew we wanted to move from 6 to 5 for a couple of reasons. One was that we wanted it to be easier to get into. It wasn't as expensive. And we wanted to bring people in who might not play as much Magic normally. So a little cheaper draft was really an exciting thing to go for. And second, you know, we knew we could build a set for it and all the cards would work together. So we didn't need the 6th pack necessarily. And so we played for a very long time with 5 packs. And the thing was, by the end of pack 4, maybe the first 2 picks of pack 5, people were pretty much done with their decks. The 5th pack was kind of like a slog. You did it, you kind of just upgraded your deck a little bit, but people kept remarking, man, the 5th pack feels unnecessary. Man, the 5th pack feels unnecessary. And by the 3rd or 4th draft, where everyone was saying the 5th pack felt unnecessary, it was like, wait a second, maybe we don't need this after all. Could we make 4 packs work? So we went back and we did some digging in the set. We kind of cut out a lot of the weaker cards that don't normally make your decks, demolishes, naturalizes, things like that. And those cards, there's no sideboard Two-Headed Giant anyway, so it didn't make a lot of sense to include them, and kind of bumped up the power at the bottom end a little bit. Additionally, we added a bunch of artifacts into the set. So there's a bunch of like kind of curve filler artifact creatures. So no matter where you are in your draft picks, hopefully there are cards you can take during your draft. And yeah, you only end up cutting 9 or 10 cards from your deck, but it makes the drafting pretty quick and easy, and your decks can really turn out fine without it. So we were able to cut that, and for this set, I think it works out pretty well at 4 packs. And it's a lot cheaper too. You need 4 packs to draft with 2 people.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Okay. So one of the quotes, and you kind of talked about this a little bit, the quote from the article itself said, "You kicked out a number of weaker power level cards at common that almost never make your draft deck, and also increased the number of common artifacts above the normal rate to obviously be included in more decks. So did the set start off with those weaker cards and then you changed it a bunch, or did you kind of go with that in mind? Was it a result of lowering it from 5 to 4 packs?
Yeah, it was definitely a result of lowering from 5 to 4 packs, because we had cards like Naturalize in there at the beginning, things along that nature. And no one was really playing them because they're normally sideboard cards, and they're just on the weaker end and not making your deck. And there's also, a number of cards we put in sets that are cards you might play on rare occasions, some auras that are on the weaker side, things like that. And we said, hey, what if we just cut out the bottom ends and tried to make this thing work without them? And I think it works out pretty fantastically. And because there's no sideboarding, a lot of times those cards come up in sideboarded games. We get to feel clever by boarding in your tap target creature card or something like that. And Intuitive Giant, there's no sideboard, so
sure,
got rid of them.
Can everybody hear us okay, by the way? Hear him okay? All right.
So.
Do you want to bump up the speaker maybe just a little bit? I know the announcements just started right after we started up, obviously.
It's an exciting day here at SCGCON. Everyone's
is.
announcing stuff, mini events firing off, so
lots of exciting stuff. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of the mechanics. So the first one is, I think, the big one that came back from one of the Commander precons, which is Partner with X.
Mm-hmm.
This was tweaked a little bit from the original Partner with. Was it originally that way, or did it originally come out just as the straight partner from the Commander set as a way to get that back in?
Yeah, so this mechanic had a really long journey that eventually went around in nearly a circle.
Okay.
So when Sean was working on the set in design, he was about to hand off, and he had Partner in the set at the time. And just straight up Commander Partner written on Magic cards, and the way that it would interact is there would be things that would care about your partner. So for example, target creature gets +2/+2, if it's a partner it gets +4/+4, stuff like that. So it was a word that it keyed in on. But it wasn't really working, and a lot of the support cards, like you had to write all these words on these cards to make partner matter, and they seldom actually came out. So we started looking at other options, and what we found at the time is we discovered this really unique thing where we could actually drop 2 of the same cards together in a booster pack. This was brand new technology we had never debuted before, and when we got the confirmation we could do that, we started thinking, okay, it's about 2 people fighting together. What if you could get 2 cards together, draft 2 cards together, because Intuitive Giant draft, you take them both simultaneously, and then you could put them in each other's decks. And that led to the first iteration of a mechanic we called Duo. And Duo is pretty much exactly the same as the Partner with mechanic that you guys know about now, with 2 big differences. One is that you couldn't both use them as your commanders, and the other is there was a mana cost when you played it. So it would be, when this comes into play, choose a player, and that player may pay mana cost.
Okay.
If they do, search their library for it and put it into their hand. And the reason why there was a mana cost on it was so that it could be both colors. So for example, Toothy was a blue card with a green Duo ability. So when you're building your commander deck, it was a way to kind of cheat and say, hey, it's got a green mana symbol on it. It's a blue and green card. You can play it and go get Peer out of your deck.
Okay.
Well, we tried that, but there were a couple tricks. The first was that even though you could play both commanders in your deck, one was going to die and not go back to your command zone after you searched it out, and you couldn't get it back into your hand. So that was a bummer. And when we tried pulling it out of the graveyard back into your hand, we found that was actually just crazy, because the best thing to do was play one commander, have it die, play the other commander, have it die, and just kind of oscillate back and forth and never actually have them both in play at the same time, which is exactly contrary to the mechanic.
Yeah.
And Intuitive Giant Limited, that caused a lot of trouble too, because you just had infinite blockers, infinite coming into play effects, totally crazy. So that didn't work out. We started investigating other options, and we thought, what if we went back to the Partner with Well? What if they could both actually be your commander, a variant on Partner?
Yeah.
And so we went to the rules and said, hey, could we do this? Could we do a variant on Partner? And they said, hey, yeah, that could work. And that's kind of the short version of how we ended up where we were today. So we started with Partner, went to something else, and came all the way back around to Partner. It turns out the original idea with some tweaks was where we needed to be.
Yeah, well, it seems to have worked out, because it seems to be a very popular mechanic so far.
And I think that it's great for Battlebond, and in any future sets, there's a lot of design space there. We could do Partner with a Beast, Partner with, partners A finds B, B finds C, C finds A for, I don't know, the Emperor set or something like that.
Some sort of the Emperor set, or the Witch slash Bogger Witch, was it? That Wind Find the Newt or whatever it was too. Things like that, where they can go find each other, and that's actually pretty cool. So one of the returning mechanics was Assist, and this was, you touched on a little bit, this was originally an Oath of the Gatewatch. Which
support,
Or support, yes, I apologize. Which was originally in there, and so it's kind of come back because it's the two-headed giant theme set. So was that just kind of a natural slot in there?
So we knew we wanted to bring back a returning mechanic. So we investigated a lot of our different options, what those could possibly be. And we originally had Surge in the set, actually, from Oath of the Gatewatch as a great cost reduction mechanic. It played pretty well. It was fun. Your partner got to do something, and then you got to make play a discounted spell because of it. However, we'll get to this in a moment, but when we brought Assist into the set, a lot of the Assist cards and the Surge cards looked very similar. They're both ways of paying mana to make your teammate pay less for their spell. They both have similar upgraded style things you could do. So we cut that out, and we kept looking at other options. What are some various mechanics we could bring back? And we investigated a bunch of different things, and eventually found that something simple, like support, would be a great fit. It's really fun to just spread some counters among your teammates' creatures. It let us build the +1/+1 counters archetype into the set. And also, when we made it the first time around in Oath of the Gatewatch, we didn't make a lot of really strong commander cards with it. Yeah. And this time we were able to do some of those. So cards like Together Forever or Generous Patron are cards which are actually kind of exciting for commander play as well, and bring the support mechanic up to a whole new level. So yeah. I'm really happy with how it turned out in the set.
Okay, and then we did mention it. I messed up the name of it, but Assist was another new mechanic that's coming in, where you can pay, and this is one of those things where if you've ever played Two-Headed Giant, it's one of those things early on, if you've never really played it before, that you think is intuitive, that like, I am your partner and you're trying to cast a big spell, so I can pay for you to help because we're like attacking and blocking together. So it's just kind of the natural evolution of that, like that idea. So is that basically just where it came from? It just was a light bulb moment that this is a thing that needs to be in here?
You know, it totally was a light bulb moment, but the light bulb turned on kind of late.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, imagine you had a delayed light switch. Okay. So when the set was handed off, we had this mechanic in there called Dramatic Entrance.
Okay.
And Dramatic Entrance was basically kicker that anybody could pay. So I would play my spell and then say, I could pay the 3 mana to kick it up. You could pay the 3 mana to kick it up. Whoever wants to kick it up can pay the mana to kick it up. You would choose the player. And this had a couple weird things going on. The goal of it was, of course, that you could play it in a one-on-one game and you could still kick it yourself, but all of the costs were way too high to do that, because to make them balanced for a two-headed giant, you wanted it to be a sizable amount of mana.
Okay.
And you always felt really silly for not paying the Dramatic Entrance cost, because if I play my 4 mana creature, like, you should always pay 3 basically on every single time, and it's kind of lied about how much mana the spell really costs, because it costs 4, but it really costs 3, and so there are all these troubles with this mechanic. And we finished the playtest, and Kelly Diggs came up to me, and he's like, look, I had all these frustrating things about this mechanic, and he went on a long tangent, and he was absolutely great at this, gave a lot of great feedback. And eventually he just said, what if, I just wish that I could have helped us pay the mana cost or something like that. And that was the light bulb moment. I was like, wait a second, what if we actually did that? And so I asked a few people, and they're like, that sounds cool, but it probably doesn't work in the rules, right? So whenever someone says that, what I like to go do is go ask rules. And when they said it would work, just try not to put it on Magic Online, because that's really hard to make work. I was like, great, let's do this, let's make it happen. And so we changed over to Assist. It was called Fanfare at the time. Like, the crowd was going wild. That was fun. And it played perfectly immediately. And first, not only does it play great in the set, I think it's awesome that you and I can team up and on turn 4 drop a big creature, and it's totally sweet. But it's what we call a stealth teaching mechanic too, that does what you're talking about. Where in Magic, if a card says haste, for example, and there's the reminder text, it's going to attack the turn it comes into play, it's an awesome stealth teaching card, because if you're learning, you see this card, and it teaches you, oh, creatures can't all attack the turn they come into play, because this card has a special ability that lets it do that. So by having Assist in the set, it actually teaches you, oh, we can't always pay for spells together. Cards will specifically say when this can happen. And that's kind of a really stealth thing that it does that is a nice little bonus, in addition to being really fun and exciting. And then for Commander, we made a few rare shots, play of the game and game plan as two, that are pretty exciting for Commander play.
I'm very excited for play of the game. That's a good one. All right, so the last mechanic is one that I actually also really like, which was Friend or Foe, which is super great. And this seems like pretty obvious in Two-Headed Giant, and it seems like just a really, really good political mechanic for Commander. So can you tell me a little bit about like the development of that one?
I will say, there's nothing more satisfying than Two-Headed Giant when it's right to call your teammate a foe. It just feels so good. You're like, it's time to sacrifice this creature, go for it. It occasionally comes up. So we had a rare cycle in the set. We always knew we wanted some big splashy effect. And if you look at a lot of the games that Battlebond draws on, these kind of RPG or MOBA style games, a lot of characters have like a big move, right? Their big named move that they kind of unleash. And so we tried a few iterations of this. We tried like these 8 mana spells that had these huge effects, and then would refresh, go back on top of your deck. Stuff that kind of felt like it could be from a MOBA game or a Final Fantasy or an RPG of some kind. Mm-hmm. And we eventually decided that those weren't really working out. We needed something new. And we went around and thought, okay, what about cards that were good for you, and then you could pick who else they were good for. And that would let it be great for multiplayer, commander-style games. You kind of declare who you wanted to be friends and foes with, and also be great to a giant, because we would always be friends and they would always be foes. So we tried a version of this that wrote it all out, and it was really long, and it was actually Eli Schifrin, one of our rules managers, that had the idea, what if we gave names for these, and friend or foe, and that was his initial idea, and it just stuck. It was so much fun. And saying, hey, I'm a friend, you're a foe, is great in Commander, because it's like so loud. Nope, you're my enemy. You sacrifice an artifact or enchantment. It's going to be great. And it really allowed those cards to live. So I love how they turned out, and I hope we can do more like this in the future. I think this might even spurn us to create more friend or foe cards in upcoming Commander sets.
Yeah, that's always great when the first initial idea that you come up with is just like, yeah, that's obvious. Like, that's the best way we can do this. So it's great that it made it all the way through. Mm-hmm. So with all of these new mechanics and with the returning of support and everything like that, a lot of people have called Battlebond Commander Masters. Like, it's just a thing. A lot of people have said there's a lot of cards, a lot of political cards, a lot of multiplayer cards that seem designed almost specifically for it. So how much was design concentrating on Commander versus pure two-headed giant when developing the set?
A lot. So when we were working on two-headed giant, from the outset, we knew that we wanted Battlebond to be a two-headed giant set, but we didn't expect anybody to go and like play constructed two-headed giant afterwards. And we want the cards to have life outside of the format. Because if you go and you draft and you get a bunch of cards that are only good in two-headed giant, well, you're not going to be able to do much with them afterwards. So we knew at the beginning that we wanted the rares and mythics especially to focus on other formats. And the main ones that we identified were Commander, Cube, and Legacy as the three kind of places where these cards can live outside. So a lot of the rares and mythics were designed for that, and kind of my philosophy was, unless it had like a really strong, flavorful reason, or was really a home run into it, a giant, Mags of the Candelabra as an example of, wow, it just makes so much sense in this set, we're going to do it. If it wasn't in that category, it was going to be a card for Commander, Cube, or Legacy. And because I think Commander has this huge wide play base and it's easier to get cards into decks, it's a lot easier to make a card that is good in Commander than good in Legacy because the pressure is so high on that. We focused a lot of the cards there, and we found great reprints like Doubling Season and Tidespout Tyrant, and then really new exciting cards like Arena Rector, which I think is this home run that hits on both Legacy, Commander, and Cube. Yeah. And I was so in love with many of the designs we come up with. Plus, it's a fun like multiplayer set, so we get to make cards here we could never really make anywhere else, and that was really fun. Stuff that kind of only could work here and then extends out to these other formats.
Yeah, that's great that you were able to kind of develop it specifically for all of these different ways that people normally only get like a couple of cards per like standard set. So that's actually a very cool thing.
And you know what it's really taught us too is when we're making our standard sets, maybe we should try putting more multiplayer focused cards in there because people really seem to enjoy them, as it turns out.
Yeah, they're very cool. So you had talked about in one of your articles, or I believe it was a tweet maybe, where there was the card from Future Sight that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head that says that your partner can something. It references a partner.
Imperial Mask.
Mask, that's what I thought it was. Yeah. Okay, I just didn't want to say the wrong thing, but you said that this seems like an obvious choice, but you didn't put it in the set. And was there a reason for that? Yeah,
so when Imperial Mask comes into play, you create a token of Imperial Mask under your teammate's control.
Oh, your teammate's
control.
So
it's an enchantment, and it gives you hexproof. So it makes a lot of sense. We put this in Future Sight, and trust me, there's no one who wants to reprint Future Sight cards more than me, except for like Mark Rosewater probably. But every set I work on, I try and figure out, ooh, what Future Sight card can I get in this time? What can I slide past? And of course, the more of them you go through, the harder and harder it becomes until all you have left is like Spellweaver Volute, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a really hard one. So Imperial Mask made a lot of sense, and we wanted to put it in the set. But what we found is it's actually pretty weak in Two-Headed Giant Limited. Giving you and your teammate hexproof isn't a very strong thing to do. And no one plays the card outside of Two-Headed Giant, so, well, it just didn't add up. It would read well. When you're looking at the set on a spreadsheet, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. They reprinted this card, but no one actually wants to have that card in their collection, really. Or some people do, if you're out there, no offense. But it's a much less desirable than, having a new exciting card, perhaps. And so we thought about it and decided to ultimately cut it for cards that would make more sense and in the set as far as cards people wanted to own. With that said, thinking about it more afterwards, we could have tried making some cards that did that with a new riff on it. For example, a creature that when it came into play, your teammate got a copy of it. And if we do a Battlebond 2, that's totally a thing that we might explore. It's like, ooh, I play this, and you get a copy of it. And we actually, we did try some of that in early design, and partner kind of meant we didn't want to do that, but things in that vein could be really fun to play around with, because it is really fun to say, I play something, you get something, but Imperial Mask wasn't quite the design we were looking for.
Yeah, so you just wanted more of the cards that had, as you said before, life after the actual draft or limited environment and stuff like that. So
absolutely.
That's awesome. Are there any other cards that are similar to that, like maybe something that you really wanted to make it into the set that didn't end up doing it? I'm sure there's probably tons, but
for a Magic card set, the number of cards that go through a set before it's printed is probably a few thousand. Like, there's so many cards designed, taken out, reprints put in, taken out, happens over and over and over again. So the thing that I was maybe, I don't want to say sad about, but that I wish we could have included was Surge, because a lot of the Surge cards from Oath of the Gatewatch are really fun, but Assist is just so much more, I find it's more fun, and it also fit the setting a lot better. But if we ever go back to Battlebond and we don't want to do Assist, Surge is a really great natural fit.
Yeah. So speaking of the flavor of it and everything, it seems like a very interesting world. So we're on this new plane called Kylam that seems very cool, and it's all about sports and spectacle and trying to do something, not just defeating your opponents, but defeating them in the best way possible, like the most awesome way possible.
Gotta have style, right?
Exactly, which is like one of the main ways that I like to do things in Commander. I like to, instead of just like, I'm gonna combo out and everybody's dead on one turn, I like to, we're gonna do this really big thing. So it seems like you're really focusing on that kind of area. So was this how the flavor was originally developed, or was there something kind of different that led into this?
We always knew we wanted Battlebond to be a little more lighthearted, because if you're bringing someone into play Magic with you, we want it to be really inviting. And for a lot of people who don't play as much Magic, like, hey, let's bring in my kid or a significant other or somebody, want it to be fun and have this kind of flair and panache to it. So we always knew we wanted that kind of in there, but the world really took on a life of its own when we started getting the concept art in and started writing some of the descriptions for it. And to me, it's just this, it's so adorable and wonderful. Like, the art which sums up the set maybe the best to me is the concessions vendors, stadium vendors.
Yeah.
It's like the goblins like hawking their potions in the stadium. I love that piece of art, and it just feels like so at home here. It's like on no other plane are goblins just selling you potions while you're sitting down for your seat. But anyway, so we always knew we wanted to have this lighthearted flavor, and then Creative built all these things into it. And one thing that you kind of see in subtle ways throughout the set is this thing we call twosieness, and the idea that things come in twos on Kylam. Okay. So, for example, if you look at the, there's a green green assist card. Green, it's a big beast, it's 7/5 trampler, 7/6 trampler, at green common, and that guy's got two heads. It's twin-headed Binox or something like that is its name. And just a lot of things have two heads, or things come in twos, or things like that. And two, I reprinted Spell Snare because it has to do with two, right? All these things that have two in them, because it's a set all about two things coming together, two-headed giant. And so that's kind of subtly woven in there, which gives the world a really unique feel as well. So I'm really happy with how it came together, and I really don't think this is the last we've seen of Kylam and Valor's Reach.
Yeah, it seems like it's very popular. It seems like a lot of people are very interested in seeing more of the plane itself, and just it's already become very popular on social media and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of people talking about it. One
of the things I always love to do is, like, the day we announce something, go read Twitter and Reddit and see what everyone is saying about a new set. And when we announced Battlebond, we announced that you were going to have to fight with Flair. Everyone wanted the folding chair equipment you could hit someone over the head with, like professional wrestling. So that one, guys, that's up here for Battlebond 2. I'll keep that folding chair equipment in mind.
All right, so we had some people send in some questions via email ahead of time. If you have any questions at all, please go see Augustus over here. We got some note cards so that we can take down your questions. So first off, Sasha Rowley asks, were there any cards or creature types that you wanted to be in Battlebond but didn't make the cut?
Well, creature types, so one thing we didn't talk about earlier was warrior tribal. So the set kind of has this warrior tribal theme woven throughout it, and it's because we wanted something that you and your team could draft together. It was pretty fun to say, hey, I'm a warrior deck, you're a warrior deck, all of our stuff gets better. Let's have build these decks together. And originally that was actually beast tribal. It was in red and green, and had a lot of the very similar cards to what you see today, but with beasts instead of warriors. And while I'm really happy with where Warriors ended up, I think it's a better fit for Kylum, I think it's a better fit for the world, people battling in the arena. I am personally a huge lover of Beasts, and I hope somewhere I get to deploy Beast Tribal, because there isn't a good red-green Beast commander, and we need to get that out into the world.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. This is more of a personal question, but why was your Homunculus legendary not Esper for Director Kyle West, who is a fan of Homunculus Tribal?
You know, if we're going to do a tribal commander, we want to make sure that it actually cares about the tribe.
Yeah.
So maybe someday we'll do your Esper Homunculus tribal. And that's been, from this set, that's been a thing that's kind of been planted into my head of like, we really want a homunculi tribal commander. So, you know, one thing that I've seen really successful with Battlebond is Najila, the War Blossom, this 5-color warrior commander. The number of players who have told me, I never knew I wanted to build a 5-color warrior deck, but yeah, I definitely do. And so I have all these ideas in my head now for other kind of tribal commanders I want to build, and Homunculi is there, because there's a number of Homunculi in Magic, and they're kind of fun to build around.
Believe me,
so,
we have several foil versions of all of the Totally Lost and Jeering Homunculus, all on Director Kyle West's desk, because it's one of his favorite. We actually have in our studio artist-proof copy of Puppet Conjurer, basically
nice.
as a dedication to that.
Shards of Alara All-Star.
All-Star.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, I'll put that up there with like the Bear and the Ooze and Lord and all these other ones we're trying to get out there. So eventually, keep waiting, it'll happen someday.
So, okay, Jacob Sisson asks, how was playtesting and design development different for this set, considering it was made primarily for Two-Headed Giant?
Well, we needed to find a bunch of people to pair up with each other. That's one thing. You know, actually, a really important part of Battlebond is, as I mentioned earlier, we wanted it to be accessible for people who don't always go and play Magic. That was a really important thing to us. And if we just play an R&D Battlebond all the time, and we're playing the same people who have Pro Tour top 8s and play professional Magic, or you know, design Magic day in and out, and they pair up with each other, we're not really testing that. It's really hard to get that. So what I actually sought out to do was go to other places inside the building and find people who play a lot less Magic and bring them in for the testing process. So we brought in people from finance, people from like digital people who don't always play a lot of Magic, or people who are newer to Magic, to come and sit down and play our game. Because at Wizards, I mean, we all play Magic, we all have a familiarity, but a lot of people don't play nearly as much Magic as an R&D. So by bringing them in, it really let us hone and make sure that, hey, this is making sense. Even if you're new, you're having a fun time playing this, and you still feel like you get choices you get to make. In design, we talked a lot about high five moments. These are moments where I would set you up for something cool. Like I would put Fertile Ground on Jeremy's land on turn 2, and he would play a 3-drop. And so we wanted to generate a lot of these high five moments so that even if you were newer, you could feel like you were contributing and doing something really cool to the game. And that kind of came out of bringing in some of these people who don't play as much Magic, and they gave really great feedback and helped figure out that we should be doing things like get the 5th pack out of there, because 4 packs is a lot to read. That takes a long time to draft already, and things like that. So that was a huge part of our testing process that changed for this set.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a really good way to include people that, as you said, don't their primary job isn't playing Magic and testing Magic all the time. All right, so when designing Battlebond, was there any thought to the set including cards containing text each opponent? And we kind of talked about that. They said, for example, Sanctum Seeker. Or were these intentionally left out of design to create less confusion amongst players that are new to the Two-Headed Giant format?
So each opponent is pretty cool in Two-Headed Giant because it hits 2 people. And we did leave some cards in with it. For example, there's a Screeching Buzzard, where when it dies, each opponent discards a card.
Okay.
But we tried to not do anything that dealt damage to your opponents, because it actually was pretty confusing, we found. If you play a card that says each opponent loses 2 life, a lot of people didn't know if they lost 2 life or 4 life or exactly how that all played out. So the set has basically none of these. The one exception is there's Korvath's Fury, the red friend or foe card, which deals damage to each opponent equal to the number of cards in their hand. But because it calls out that it counts the number of cards in their hand, people will generally get the right idea. Either that they'll think, hey, this person has 3, this person has 4, deal 3, deal 4 damage, they take 7 damage, or combine the number of cards, deal 7 damage. So we gave that one a pass, but in general, we tried to avoid that. But other than that, each opponent, where appropriate, was pretty cool. The one thing that we found, though, is those cards are really powerful. So, for example, Liliana Spectre was in the set for a while, 3 mana, 2/1 flyer. When it comes into play, each opponent discards a card, and that card was super strong. It's a 3 mana, 2/1 Mind Rot that flies, and it turned into Screeching Buzzard. So we tuned down the power on those a little bit, just because they were really strong. And we also tried to make sure that there were more that helped your team out than hurt your opponent. Because when you're doing something cool for yourself, oh, that's totally awesome. We're working together, Jeremy. We're having a great time. But when I play a card that makes you both discard a card or deals a ton of damage to both of you, wow, it feels like you're kind of cheating the system, and that really hurts. So we were very careful and deliberate about the ones we did put in the set.
Okay, that's very cool. All right, so Joey D asks, what was the biggest design challenge you faced while creating a set designed around Two-Headed Giant?
The thing that was the hardest for us, I think, was getting the speed to be just right, because Two-Headed Giant has a tendency to bog down, because the games go long, you have a ton of creatures in play, and especially if you are a newer player or less experienced playing, cutting through the combat can be really hard. But by the same token, if you take it in the opposite direction and try and speed it up, then it feels really unsatisfying. You play 5 or 6 turns of Magic, you have a quick aggro start, and the game's over. You spent 45 minutes drafting and deck building or longer, and you sit down and play a 10-minute game, and it doesn't feel great. So finding the way where you could have those long games and those short games and have the sweet spot took a lot of fine-tuning. And you still see the games that are fast or really slow, but I found a lot of the games end up in this great middle bucket, and we made sure there was enough evasion, ways to break board stalls, as well as enough big exciting bomb rares you could slam down and would turn the tide in your favor. But because you get to look at so many over the course of the draft, each player's deck tends to have a lot of really powerful rares. So there's a lot of great moments for swings too. We wanted this kind of dramatic flair in Kylum and Valor's Reach, and the powerful rares let you do that. So that was kind of the hardest part to get right, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. It took a lot of playtesting, but it turned out really nice.
Okay. While you were designing the set, how concerned were you with card design and how a card might fit into Commander?
Yeah, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but it was really important to us, especially at the rare and mythic rare level, that a lot of those cards could fit into Commander. And we designed a lot of cards specifically for that, and brought back reprints like Doubling Season, specifically for Commander. And I'm really happy with the suite I chose, and we left a few good ones for if we do this kind of thing again.
That's good. So from Jason Westbrook, and I think this is a pretty good question. What did you want to accomplish with the set? You've talked a little bit about the high five moments and designing specifically for Two-Headed Giant and Commander, but was there one specific thing that you went in and thought, this is the thing that I want to make happen with this set?
I wanted to make people have fun playing with someone else. Make is a strong word. I wanted them to have fun playing with someone else, because when you're sitting down, you play Magic. It's great. Magic's awesome. I love playing one-on-one Magic, but it kind of looks like this. You're very serious. You're sitting down and you're playing, and often Magic isn't that. Like in Commander, for example, you have this great rollicking 4-player game. You're laughing, you're doing combos, having a fun time, and I wanted to bring that to a wider audience. But Commander's really daunting. It's hard to get into on the outset. We have these great pre-constructed decks every year, but it's still hard to get into. And I love the one-on-one competitive scene, but it doesn't always look as fun and inviting to someone who's on the outside. And so Two-Headed Giant is a great mix, because you get to bring a friend in, hey, you haven't played as much? No problem. I'll be here. I can guide you through everything. Let's have a blast playing this format. And it's really fun. You get to talk and strategize and have these high five moments, and you get that kind of lighthearted feel we're going for. And so the big test for me was, would that actually happen? Would people bring in others who don't play as much Magic? And I went to a bunch of pre-releases or preview events last weekend, and I saw brothers and sisters playing together. I saw boyfriend-girlfriend pairs, girlfriend-girlfriend pairs, boyfriend-boyfriend pairs. I saw families. I saw father-son team-ups. I saw mother-daughter team-ups. I saw this whole smorgasbord, and it brought a huge smile to my face to see all these people who might not normally come out playing and learning and sitting together and, yes, high-fiving each other. And to me, that is the magic of Battlebond, is, hey, let's sit down, let's do this thing together. We can talk about it afterwards. We can laugh about it. And to bring that to a wide audience is just amazing. It's everything I could have wanted with the set.
Cool. So that sounds like it sounds like you hit what you were aiming for. That it's really bringing people together to want to play the together Magic rather than the competitive specifically. So
I met someone at pre-release last weekend who their first date was Battlebond.
Oh.
They both found out that each other played Magic and said, hey, do you want to go to this? We'll go get dinner and then, or go play and then get dinner. I don't know how it turned out for them, but that was very amusing and wonderful to me.
I think that answers one of the questions that I don't seem to have listed here, which was, were there any interesting part? Because you talked about fathers and mothers and kids and fathers and kids and siblings and blah blah blah. What was the most interesting partner? And that's a really good one.
Yeah. I hope you guys are still together. If you're out there watching, let me know. Be a good story.
So one of the things that let's go with this. Michael Monday said that what card caused the most resistance to design for Battlebond?
Ooh, most resistance to design.
Yeah.
Well, one that definitely did was True Name Nemesis. So I was kind of looking for cards to reprint in the set, and I came across True Name Nemesis, and I was like, wow, this makes so much sense in the set, because in every other format you play it and your opponent can't interact with it. In Two-Headed Giant, you pick a head, and then the other person can still do whatever. I'll never forget the draft. It was the first draft I put True Name Nemesis in. Someone had it in their deck, and it's turn 3. They play their 3rd land. They slam down True Name Nemesis, and they're like, what? And their opponents are like, man, that card's so crazy. Wow, True Name Nemesis. And the team's like, yeah, it's absurd. I can't believe it's in the set. That's ridiculous. Like, why is this card here? Wow, it's so strong. And they spend like a minute like talking about True Name Nemesis. And then they pass the turn. The other team's like just grumbling, like, oh man, True Name Nemesis, how are we going to beat that? They draw their card, and then they're just like, shocking. And it's this moment of, oh right, it's a lot easier to deal with in this format. So it was a great fit for the set, but it has protection on it, and protection is a confusing mechanic. It was the only card in the set with protection, and there were a lot of people like, is it doing it right? And it's supposed to be for a set that could be good for newer players, and it's just like a weird one-off thing. We're not really doing protection in our sets right now, but ultimately it was just such a great fit, and it was at Mythic, and it was a weird kind of protection that it worked out well, and I'm glad that it stuck in the set despite a little bit of resistance.
Yeah, it's definitely a good inclusion in there. Let's see. This is something that's been a little bit controversial, and that was basically the art style. And I don't think it's necessarily controversial in that it's caused a whole bunch of people to say, oh, I'm never going to play Magic again or anything. But there have been a lot of questions of, this doesn't seem like it's as well developed. It's a lot brighter, so it's like a lot of other Magic sets recently have had some dark undertones and things like that. And so what actually inspired the art style in Battlebond more than anything else?
So in Magic, we always pan the camera around. We see a lot of different things. We see everything from, the gritty new Phyrexia all the way to the light Lorwyn. And we like to have things switch up. So for example, seeing Ixalan at a nice, vibrant, exciting world after Amonkhet, which ended up being very, dour and despair. That's something we try and do. And with Battlebond, we wanted a lighthearted feeling. We wanted to evoke things of sports and esports, which is kind of what the world was built around. And so having this kind of light, vibrant style with cheering crowds and colorful outfits was absolutely something we wanted to do for both the lighthearted nature and for the flavor of the set. And personally, I like it. I think it works good for the set. Would I want this kind of art style to be on Phyrexia? Well, probably not, but that's why we do different things in different places. So that's kind of my answer to the question, and I think if we go back to Kylum, you'll see a lot of the same kind of art style show up, maybe with some tweaks, but in general, I'm really happy with how it ended up, and I think it shows off the world in a really cool way.
Was there any consideration for trying to separate it as a Drafts Matter set from the darker Conspiracy sets?
Absolutely. We wanted to look different from Conspiracy, and Conspiracy has this, dark plotting undertone, and where Kylum is very fun and in your face, and like I said, a little more lighthearted. So yeah, we wanted to separate them and not have people think, hey, is this on Fiora? Nope, it's its own thing, and Fiora is where Conspiracy takes place.
Yeah.
There's probably plotting happening right now, and who knows who's dead.
All right, so Tyler Owens writes in, where do you typically find your inspiration for new card/world designs? And I know this is one of those big questions where it could be tons of different things. So
yeah, I'll speak to it on the card level a little more because the creative geniuses work on the worlds, and I give some input. I studied creative writing in college, so I have a background of building worlds, but they really do the bulk of the work. For new cards, I find my 3 main sources for new cards. Okay, check this out. Number one thing, I'm playing a game of Magic. I'm like, I wish I had a card that did this. I'm like, huh. Right, I get to make Magic cards. I can make the card that does that.
I can just do that.
So that's a place that ideas come from sometimes. So if I'm in a playtest, I'm like, wow, I really wish there was a cheaper removal spell that fit this kind of deck. But I was like, oh, I'll just go back to my desk and make it. 2 is, especially at the rare and mythic rare level, finding riffs or things that players liked and expanding on them. Arena Rector is a great example of this. This was a great design. It's like, hey, Academy Rector is a card people love. People like Planeswalkers. What if we mash them up together? And is it the most subtle design? Well, no, but it's a fun callback. And I was so happy we got to do Brightling as a riff on Morphling also. Another great example of that. And then finally, sometimes the set will just have a need. I'm looking through the set and I'm like, hey, I need a splashy blue instant because the set has no other blue rare instants. What do I need to design for this? Then you're designing a card to kind of fit that hole.
For the spot. Okay.
And then I guess finally, as a subcategory is flavor. In this set, we had a very long list of kind of words we wanted to build and put into the set. Like the crowd goes wild, play the game, fumble. We knew we wanted these top-down cards, so we designed some cards to these flavorful notes as well.
That's awesome. And then another one from Tyler, which I wanted to include in because I just love the question itself. Can you explain the flavor of Najeela and why she doesn't partner with anyone? Is she like LeBron James in that she can win in spite of her teammates?
She's a powerful warrior, doesn't need anybody else. I mean, you know, she brings in an army with her, right? With Najeela, she attacks your other warriors attack, a ton of tokens spawn up. She's got plenty of buddies running around, make no mistake about it. And while, you know, the heart of Kylum and Valor's Reach is this 2-on-2 combat in the story, they also have 1-on-1 combat as well. So we wanted to make sure to pan the camera around and see not just the 2-on-2 fighting, but the 1-on-1 fighting as well.
That makes sense.
And actually, originally, we talked about having a partner Warrior Matters pair, a pair that was all about being warriors, but we wanted to make it be a 5-color commander so you could build your 5-color commander deck. And since the partners in this set are only 2 colors, 1 color and another color, we pulled it off the partner space.
Okay, that makes sense. Noah Wallert asks, did you have a go-to partner when playtesting Battlebond, and if so, who?
I actually had the exact opposite. I wanted to switch as often as possible when playtesting so I could try it with a lot of different people. I wanted to say, hey, I'm going to play with a Pro Tour champion. I'm going to play with someone who barely plays Magic. What are their experiences like? And in these cases, as the lead designer, I always tried to step back and play more of the support role and really try to let them run the show as the two-headed giant pair and see what they wanted to do. And you learn so much by playing with different people inside the building, just different preferences and play styles. And I wanted to get a wide variety of experiences, so that's kind of why I went down that avenue.
That's very cool. After having developed it, is there a go-to person that you would have as a partner?
Well, if I wanted to win, I would just pick probably Ian Duke for my team. He's such a great Magic player, and he gave a lot of great insights on gameplay for the set.
That's great. This one was asked by a few people. Would Battlebond's success open the door for future supplements for other multiplayer formats?
Yes. You know, I think Battlebond's done some really great things, and we're going to keep needing to do innovation products. They're doing really well for us. So who knows what might come out in the future? Stay tuned.
Were there any partners that this was a question from Gavin?
I didn't put it in myself, I promise.
Yeah. Were there any partners that you really liked that got cut?
There were a lot. So there was only 11 in the set, and that's partially because of space in the set, as well as actual printing constraints. It was a new crazy thing we were doing, and fitting in more than 11 partners was actually just a technical limitation of the set because of how it was printed. And so we got to do kind of 2 per color pair, plus the legendary planeswalkers, Rowan and Will. And we had a lot of other concepts. We actually brainstormed for every color combination, all kinds of great tropes. One of my favorites that didn't quite make it through was the green-black pair, which was a tree and a botanist, which I thought was adorable. You have like the tree folk and the person like trimming the tree folk's leaves. It was like super cute. There's a number of them, and I hope that if we do a Battlebond 2 someday, you will see a lot more of these really fun partner pairs. There's a very, very, very long list. The one that I am most happy made it through is probably the Homunculus and the Cyclops. That was one of creative's idea, and everyone kind of looks like, that's ridiculous. But there's 2 eyes, see? Get it, there's 2 eyes between 2 of them. It's adorable, and I don't know why that one tickles me so much, but I love it. And the fact that we made it about coin flipping makes it all the better. In fact, I just played my Oakwand Zender split deck over in Spell Slinging, and I won on turn 5, my first ever time playing it, so that was pretty good.
That's awesome.
Chance to counter, victory. It's pretty great.
So you talked a little bit about this, and this is one I just wanted to bring up. That was the idea to make the partners each individually monocolored just to try and get the 10 color pairs in as part of, you know, the whole thing, or were there considerations for, you know, a black-green and a blue-red partner with?
You know, I think we got to go to the well of multicolor partner designs in the future, save us some design space. But part of the reason why we wanted them to be monocolor and enemy color specifically is the set is about allied colors. So you have these allied dual lands, you have a lot of allied gold cards, you have, normally like I'm playing an allied deck and you're playing an allied deck. I'll play white, green, you play blue, black, and so on. Because think about all the different permutations you have to draft, and your partner is also trying to draft, means you kind of end up with deck soup and you have to deck build afterwards. So the reason why they're actually enemy colors instead of allied colors or any other combination is to make it more clear that I put one in my deck and you put one in your deck. Because they're most fun when I play one and you play one. We just kind of do it together in tandem, simultaneous. And if they were allied color, a lot of time it would be right to put them both in my deck. So that's kind of why they're enemy color and why we did monocolor for these guys. But there's absolutely the chance to do multicolored ones or all kinds of other wild combinations in the future. And we save that design space. So I know a lot of people want allied color partner with, and maybe we'll get them someday.
That's awesome. All right. The last question, and I think we'll just wrap it up. Are there any Battlebond Easter eggs that haven't been discovered yet?
You know, my answer would have been the one that people started talking about yesterday, but that's that on the card Goblin Fanatic, Shearing Fanatic. It's the person in the art is cosplaying Sylvia Dragonspear, or what I don't know what her final name is.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, Bright Flame, Sylvia Bright Flame. Is cosplaying her in the artwork. So it's the idea we wanted to get as many like sports and fan tropes in there as possible, and a cosplayer was like a light little goal we had. And so in the art you see the Goblin's got on like her helmet and is wearing her colors, and the flavor text is like smash him, beat him, destroy him, or things like that. And it's like he's in the crowd. He's really excited. He wants his favorite team to do well, and that means a lot to me.
That's pretty awesome. Did we have any other questions from anybody? No. Okay. I think we are all set. Gavin, you will be here for the rest of the weekend. You'll be spell slinging. Are you going to be participating in anything else during the weekend?
Well, I've got a pretty busy spell slinging schedule, but I will be back in 2 hours from now for the Commander panel, and then I'll be back a couple days for the Brawl panel. So really excited to talk about both those formats. And as someone who plays a lot of Commander, lead designed Commander 2017, lead designed Commander 2018, lead designed Battlebond, and was kind of the person who brought Brawl to the forefront. I've got a lot of things to say, so stay tuned. I think the Commander panel later today should be really exciting.
And where can people find you online?
Well, fortunately, my name is unique, and not a lot of people have it. So on Twitter, at Gavin Verhey, Instagram, at Gavin Verhey. If I had a MySpace, it'd probably be at Gavin Verhey. Just put my name in there, and you'll probably find it. I'm the only one of me that I know. So search for me on your social media networks, and I will be there.
All right. Thank you so much for coming out, everyone. Thank you for Gavin for being here with us today. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend
and thanks
here at SCGCON.
Thanks to StarSeed for running a great event. SCGCON is awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.